Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Qianwudi's voice came from the big gold coin, and he seemed to be very distressed. It looks like you didn't even use 10% of the medicinal power. The spirit chi of a 9th-tier spirit herb was so strong that even if it devoured 5% of it, it was enough for Yunxiao to advance 1 star. Yunxiao smiled wryly in his heart. For every star he advanced, he said that the spirit chi he needed was 10 times, or even dozens of times, that of ordinary warriors. Putting aside the fact that most of the spiritual herb's energy had been absorbed by his body, even if it were all absorbed into his dantian and converted for his own use, he still had no confidence in advancing. He looked at Qianwudi's appearance. Although he was still a 1-star martial emperor, his temperament had changed greatly, and it seemed a little difficult to see through him. How are you? Have you comprehended all the martial intent of the 7 constellations realm? Yunxiao asked with a smile. All the martial intent of the 7 constellations realm. At that moment, everyone was shocked, and they immediately understood what they were exchanging with Yunxiao. Zhang Hanja was also shocked. No wonder Qianwudi's aura was completely different after he came out of seclusion, even though his cultivation level did not increase. It was as if he was in a hazy fog, making it difficult to see clearly. Qing Luo was also taken aback. She did not expect Yunxiao to have such a thing. The Tao fruits of the 7 constellations didn't mean much to them, but to the rich and powerful sects, they would spare no effort to collect such things in order to cultivate their elite disciples. Moreover, the 2 meetings of the Merchant Union were about to begin, and only young people were attending. Among the younger generation, it was already the best to have the cultivation of a martial emperor. It was no wonder that Qianwudi could accept the harsh price Yunxiao offered. The look in her eyes as she looked at Yunxiao became complicated again, and she was even more convinced that he was Li Huaqi's eldest cousin. Otherwise, how could an unknown young man have so many treasures? Qianwudi looked at him coldly and said arrogantly, "You don't have to worry about that. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Yang City. If I'm not mistaken, you're going to represent Tianyuan Trading Company." Seeing that Yunxiao did not deny it, there was a hint of excitement in his eyes as he said, "Very good. When the time comes, I will prove what I said today and print the sole of my shoe on your face." Yunxiao smiled and said, "Why don't we make another bet? Not too much. Just 1 billion medial-grade primordial stones. How about it?" Even a rich man like Qianwudi sucked in a breath of cold air, his eyes flashing with a cold light. "When you die in my hands, who am I going to get the primeval stones from?" "Don't forget," Yunxiao said with a smile. "You still owe me 1.1 billion. If I lose, you don't have to pay me back." Qianwudi's heart moved, and he was about to agree. After all, 1 billion mid-grade origin stones was not something that he could afford to take out easily. But when he thought of Yunxiao's cultivation base in Mount Meru, which was only at the level of a martial king, his strength that was comparable to a martial emperor had left a deep impression in his heart. Now, Yunxiao's cultivation base had reached the peak of 3 stars martial grandmaster, and he could break through to 4 stars at any time. In that case, how strong he was now was an unknown. Qianwudi, who was originally full of confidence, started to hesitate and lose his confidence. Zhang Hanja, who was standing at the side, felt that the atmosphere was a little off. He frowned and said, "Young master, with your strength, what's wrong?" Qianwudi blushed slightly as he looked at Yunxiao arrogantly and said, "Good. I'll bet 1 billion medial-grade primordial stones." Yunxiao smiled and praised, "Young Master Wudi, I'm really looking forward to it. I heard that the 2 most powerful cultivation techniques of Money Sect are the Shining Sun Scroll and the Broken Moon Scroll. Back then, your uncle Qian Konglai used 2 volumes of the grimoire to display his might on the heaven and earth power chart. He was ranked 22nd and the world looked up to him." Qianwudi's expression changed slightly and he snorted, not saying anything. Qian Konglai was the #1 expert in the Money Sect. He was extremely talented and had a great reputation. Originally, the position of the president of the Money Chamber of Commerce was undoubtedly his. That year, he went to participate in the ranking battle with great ambition. After he returned, he didn't say a word and directly moved out of the sect to live in seclusion alone. He also vowed that he would never come out of seclusion unless he achieved great success. Money sect had lost a top expert. Everyone was depressed when they talked about this. As for Qianwudi's father, Sheng, he took a huge advantage and became the president. Zhang Hanja sighed, the only person who can learn the Shining Sun and Broken Moon scrolls is Lord Kong Lai. He paused for a moment, then sighed, back then, when you had free time, the Broken Moon treasured scroll was on you. I heard that someone else snatched it away.
Ah.
Yunxiao chuckled dryly as beads of sweat oozed out of his forehead. Who's so wicked to steal someone else's martial technique scroll? Qianwudi said coldly, this was originally a secret of the sect, but after so many years, many people know about it. There was no harm in saying it out loud, but as for snatching the person's kasaya, he stopped and said, I don't know who it is. Uncle had never mentioned it. Maybe he wants to take it back for himself. Zhang Hanja sighed, it's not that easy. Only someone in the top 20 of the heaven and earth power chart would be able to steal something from Master Kong Lai. The heaven and earth power chart. Qianwudi's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Cough cough. Yunxiao coughed dryly. That's a little off topic. Young Master Wudi, remember to come. When he looked at Qianwudi now, he was like an elemental stone mountain. 2.1 billion yuan was enough for him to cultivate to the peak of the martial ancestor realm. Humph. Qianwudi snorted angrily. He was disgusted by Yunxiao's look as if he was a piece of fat meat. All of a sudden, everyone's heart stirred. They raised their heads and looked around, only to see that a large number of 5-element spirit-devouring rats had begun to become agitated. They were all flying in one direction at a rapid speed, covering the sky and the earth as they flew away. Big brother Yunxiao. Yifan suddenly called out, his face showing a strange and anxious expression. He kept looking around. Yunxiao's heart trembled, and he immediately understood. Yifan only showed such an anxious expression because he sensed Noah's ship. However, there were too many people here and he didn't even dare to transmit his voice. He was afraid of being caught and then he would die. Yunxiao glanced at the spirit rats that were flying away quickly and said, these rats came and left in a strange way. There must be a reason. Brother Wudi, are you interested in taking a look? Qianwudi looked hesitant. He had just swallowed the 7 constellation Dao fruit and was bent on cultivating in seclusion. Qing Luo finally broke the silver mark on her throat and spoke. She seemed to have held it in for too long, so she spoke in a single breath, I'm not going. I suddenly remembered that I still have important matters to deal with in the sect, so I'll take my leave. The mountain will not move, the water will move, we will meet again. This trip to the Demon Plains was just a casual visit after receiving a notice from the higher-ups, but she did not expect to almost lose her life. She could not stay here for another moment. The rest of the Empyrean 1 Pavilion's people also responded, hoping to return home. Yunxiao laughed in his heart and said, since that's the case, Lady Qing Luo, can you lend me this netherworld warship? Borrow a battleship? Qing Luo pulled a long face and said coldly, Li Yunxiao, do you think this warship is a cabbage? He just borrowed it. If it's damaged, can you afford to pay for it? Yunxiao turned to Qianwudi and said, Brother Wudi, I want to borrow their warship. Can you help me? Qing Luo's expression changed drastically as she looked at the gold coin with a dark expression. Qianwudi also knew that Yunxiao wanted to use his power to snatch the warship, so he immediately laughed and said, the battleship belongs to them, what can I do? I also suddenly remembered that I still have very important matters to deal with in the sect, so I'll take my leave. The mountain will not move, the water will move, we will meet again. The gold coin began to move slowly and was about to leave. Qing Luo breathed a sigh of relief, then looked at Yunxiao and the others and sneered, but since we've been through thick and thin together for so long, I'll lend you a smaller one. She threw out a beam of light, and a Tiger King chariot appeared outside the battleship. Although the chariot was small, it was enough to accommodate them. When Yunxiao saw that Qianwudi was really leaving, he knew that there was no hope for him to seize the warship. He could only sigh and say, "Then we'll meet again. Take care, everyone. I hope we'll meet again in Yang City." He and the people from the Hall of Holy Fire jumped onto the Tiger King chariot. Yi Fan rejoiced in his heart. If so many people went, he would not know what to do. Qing Luo laughed and said, "We will definitely go to Yang City. You'd better take good care of yourself." She laughed and turned the warship around, turning into a beam of light and leaving. Qianwudi also said,
Goodbye.
and disappeared. Yunxiao suddenly frowned and sighed as he watched the Netherworld warship disappear in the air. Yi Fan was puzzled. "Big brother Yunxiao, isn't it better for them to leave? We can act on our own." Yunxiao sighed and said, "Qing Luo and the others may be in danger. Other than them, there are other people on that battleship." The others? The few people from the Hall of Holy Fire looked at each other in confusion. Furthermore, there were so many people on the battleship, yet no one had discovered it. How did he know? When Yunxiao was eating the heavenly soul herb to cultivate earlier, he had sensed the person hiding in the warship, but he could not be sure. When he fused with the demonic dragon's soul, his soul power had reached the peak. He was sure that there were 5 people hiding in the battleship, and they were all very powerful. He cast aside his distracting thoughts and said, "Let's not care about them." "Yi Fan, what did you sense?" Yi Fan's face was serious. "Aura. The aura of Noah's ship. I feel a kind of summoning. Noah's ship is summoning me. This feeling is very strong." Yunxiao was taken aback as he looked in the direction where the spirit mouse had disappeared. Frowning, he said, "If Noah's boat is really in the demon's land, then only one person knows it best, and that is the Rat Emperor. What is he trying to do with so many spiritual rats flying around?" Yi Fan closed his eyes and faced the wind on the demon plane. He seemed to smell an unusual aura and said, "Big brother Cloud Sky, Noah's ship must be in front. The feeling of the key is getting stronger and stronger. If Tang Jia has the Yang key, I'm afraid he would have felt it. Then what are we waiting for? Tang Jia will definitely be at the place where Noah's ship will appear, waiting for the people with the Yin key to appear. With them opening the way in front, we can save a lot of trouble." Yunxiao smacked the Tiger King chariot with his palm, and it turned into a beam of light and sped away. At this moment, the Netherworld battleship, which had just separated from the group, flew in the air for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Its speed became slower and slower, and finally, it came to a stop, quietly floating in the air. It was quiet on the battleship, and a kind of terrifying and cold aura spread out. He actually couldn't feel the life of a living person. At the entrance of the stairs leading to the inside of the battleship, there was a flickering green light. In the large control room, the ground was covered with corpses. These corpses all had frightened expressions, but they were all clean and had no scars. Only Qing Luo was covered in blood. She looked at the 5 men standing in the middle of the corpses in despair. They were all dressed in the same light blue jacket and looked a little strange. A terrifying green face was devouring all kinds of struggling souls in the sky above the control room. The souls' faces were extremely distorted and afraid, but they were all sucked in by the green face one by one. A few souls were slightly tougher. If one looked carefully, they could be recognized as the 3 martial honors from the Empyrean One Pavilion. However, they were all swallowed in just a few breaths. The green-faced man's big mouth was still chewing, and his empty eyes gradually showed some color. He looked at the people below and glowed green. The man in the lead was Zhang Xiaotian. He snorted and laughed, "How greedy. I've replenished so much at once. How far am I from level 9? He walked straight to Qing Luo and smacked her forehead in despair. Her head immediately burst open like a watermelon, and her brain matter splattered all over the wall. The green face's eyes glowed with an intense green light. It sucked with all its might, and a pale yellow light was directly sucked into its mouth, which it began to chew. At this moment, his face also began to change. Golden spots appeared within the light green light, and the quality of his face continued to increase. Eldest senior brother seems to be advancing to tier 9. A junior brother looked at the golden light in the face in shock. It was the sign of their soul slave breaking through to the 9th rank. Zhang Xiaotian was also very surprised. He was pleasantly surprised and a little nervous. The 4 junior brothers all looked envious. It must be known that the Soul Devourer sect was extremely strict in the management of soul absorption, and the competition was extremely cruel. Among the disciples below the rank of Martial Supreme, there were very few whose soul slaves could advance to the 9th rank. The reason was that there was a huge restriction on the absorption of souls. It was also to prevent the sect from becoming the target of public criticism on the continent. Zhang Xiaotian didn't expect to get such a huge benefit from coming out. The other 4 shitty also began to prepare their own thoughts. They had not yet obtained any benefits. The evolution has ended. It seems like it's still lacking a little. It's not enough. Zhang Xiaotian's mouth was wide open and his face was full of disappointment. He watched as the change was about to end. The golden light on the green face also began to retreat. A junior brother's eyes flashed with jealousy as he said, "Eldest senior brother, don't worry. There are still so many strong people in the demon plains. If we catch 2 more martial honors and throw them in, we will definitely advance." Yes. Zhang Xiaotian looked at the ceiling and his face returned to normal. Indeed, if there are 2 more martial venerables, it will definitely not be a problem. Am I right, junior brother? The junior brother was stunned and felt that Zhang Xiaotian's words were wrong. He raised his head and saw a pair of eyes filled with killing intent. Eldest senior brother, what are you doing? He screamed in horror and felt a pain in his neck. Zhang Xiaotian's finger had already been inserted. With lightning speed, it struck at the throat of another junior brother. The junior brother was also stunned and directly suffered a fatal blow. The remaining 2 people instantly felt a chill run down their spines. They hurriedly took a few steps back and became alert. The person on the left shouted in shock and anger, "Eldest senior brother, what are you doing?" Zhang Xiaotian sighed and said, "Don't be afraid, my 2 junior brothers. It's enough." He cast an incantation seal into the green face on the ceiling. The green light in the eyes of the face glowed again, and the souls of the 2 junior brothers were sucked in. Zhang Xiaotian said, "This soul slave is about to successfully evolve. I really can't wait any longer. My 2 junior martial brothers, I'll leave the items and soul slaves on them to you. I'm sure you 2 don't have a good memory from what happened just now." The 2 junior brothers' faces paled. Looking at their companions who had been fighting with them just now, they felt a chill run down their spines. However, they were the best of the best who had survived the brutal training of the Soul Eater race. After a short moment of grief, they immediately regained their cold expressions. "My 2 junior brothers are very talented and have a bright future ahead of them," the man on the left side. "I didn't expect that they would die at the hands of the enemy on their first mission." The man on the right also said regretfully, "Everyone is bound to die. My 2 junior brothers have died a worthy death. Let's not be sad. We should turn our grief into strength and complete the mission under the leadership of eldest senior brother." After the 2 of them finished speaking, they rushed to the left and right and plundered everything from the 2 corpses. If his own soul slave were to be devoured, the effect would be much stronger than that of a devouring expert. Zhang Xiaotian looked at them coldly and snorted. He then focused on the soul slave on the ceiling evolving. After devouring the 2 martial supremes, the green face changed again. The golden light spots that were about to dissipate reappeared and filled the sky like starlight. The face continued to wail in pain, and it gradually turned golden. Its green eyes also became sharp and turned golden. "You've advanced as expected." Zhang Xiaotian couldn't suppress his ecstasy and laughed out loud. After the face turned golden, there was a cold light in its eyes. It stared at Zhang Xiaotian for a moment and opened its mouth as if it wanted to devour its master. Zhang Xiaotian didn't mind and continued to smile happily. He repeatedly praised, "Not bad, you're at the 9th rank as expected. Once a soul slave advances to the 9th step, it will develop its own intelligence. The higher the intelligence, the more powerful it is. I like your ferocious look. His voice suddenly turned cold. However, a soul slave will always be a soul slave, he snorted. Since you're a slave, you have to do your part. Zhang Xiaotian didn't move at all. With just a thought, the golden soul slave's pupils suddenly twisted and it screamed in front of him, begging for mercy. Humph, do you understand now? Zhang Xiaotian took out the soul-devouring flag and swept it over the soul slave. The soul slave screamed in pain and was sucked into the house. Congratulations, eldest senior brother, for successfully refining a 9th-rank soul slave. When you return to the sect, you will be promoted to an elder. The 2 junior brothers stepped forward to flatter him. Zhang Xiaotian was in a good mood and said, just focus on following me in the future. I won't mistreat you. This soul slave had just advanced to the 9th rank and was still very weak. It also needed a large amount of supplements to nourish itself. This demon land was simply heaven. The other 2 junior brothers swore their allegiance, but they were extremely depressed in their hearts. He had thought that it would be his turn to enjoy himself now that he was a rank 9 soul slave. In the end, he still said that he was weak and needed a lot of nourishment. It seemed that if he followed this person, she wouldn't be able to eat big fish and meat. He could only pick up the leftovers. However, the 2 of them had also benefited a lot from the soul slaves of their 2 junior brothers, so they had nothing to complain about. Eldest senior brother, should we go after Money Sect or those few fish that escaped from the Netherworld battleship? One of the junior brothers asked. When Zhang Xiaotian heard this, a cold light flashed in his eyes and he said, catch the fish that escaped the net. That kid has too many treasures on him, especially that purple cauldron. It has already exceeded my understanding of 9th tier profound armaments. It is at least a peak 9th tier profound armament. The peak of the 9th step. The other 2 people were both shocked and looked at each other in horror. On the entire continent, apart from Noah's ship, the most powerful profound level weapon was the peak of the 9th level, and the number was extremely small. The Soul Devourer race had one in their sect master's hands, and existences of their level had only heard of it. Zhang Xiaotian's face became colder and colder. He excitedly said, in addition to the purple cauldron, you can see that there are many 9th-ranked treasures. Those are all yours. As long as you follow me loyally, I will definitely not mistreat you. Many thanks, eldest senior brother. The 2 of them hurriedly thanked him with great joy. Zhang Xiaotian took out a small round ball and threw it into the air. He threw a few seals into it. Rays of light shot out from the small ball, and various scenes appeared in the surroundings. They continued to spread and expand, and it turned out to be a kind of full reality projection. Although the Demon Plains is vast and boundless, there's nothing in the western regions that my Soul Eater race can't control. Zhang Xiaotian kept spinning the small ball, and the entire demon land flashed in front of them. In the light projection, a white mist appeared. The spiritual energy was pressing, which was very different from other places. He pointed at the misty area and said, this should be the water moon mirror flower created by the ancient evergreen tree. That treasure boy must have followed the people of the 4 Extremes sect to this place. After we get the treasure, I'll absorb all the people from the 4 Extremes sect. When we return to the sect, I'll be able to have a seat among the elders. Your soul slaves can also be refined to the peak of the 8th rank. They'll serve me better. With a wave of his hand, the small ball was kept into his bag. The 3 of them turned into rays of light and flew toward the water moon mirror flower. The Netherworld battleship, which was worth cities, was abandoned there, and it fell when its vital stones were used up.